Sophia handed me this manuscript without a single word. Only a shadow crossed her face. And I understood. The time had come. Tell me something. What kind of pact would an angel make to abandon heaven? And what secrets lie buried in the blood of giants? This fragment, hidden among the oldest codices of the desert, is not just a text. It is the echo of a rebellion. It is the first section of the great Book of Enoch, known as the Book of the Watchers. A forbidden testimony of the fall of celestial beings, divine judgment, and the promise of restoration. It was found in ancient Ethiopian manuscripts and Aramaic fragments from Qumran, surviving like a troubling whisper on the margins of biblical history. Today, we will decrypt it in 5 sacred acts: the fall and the pact, when the Watchers descended from heaven and took human women as wives; the revelation of the secrets, the forbidden knowledge that corrupted humanity and gave birth to giants; the judgment of the Watchers, the sentence delivered by the holy angels Michael, Raphael, Uriel, and Gabriel; the celestial journey of Enoch, visions of heaven, the throne of God, and the dwelling place of the fallen angels; restoration, promise, and glory; the announcement of the flood, the separation of the righteous, and the vision of days yet to come. Prepare yourself, because this is not a text meant to be read. It is a cosmic wound that has never fully healed. And they said to one another, "Come, let us choose wives from among the humans and beget children." The pact that changed everything. Act 1. The Fall and the Pact. Before the first sword was ever forged, before mankind wrote a single law, there was a desire that did not belong to this world. The first act of the Book of the Watchers doesn't begin with a battle or an angry god. It begins with beauty. A beauty so pure it corrupts, drawing even those who were never meant to look. In those days, when the children of men multiplied, beautiful and fair daughters were born to them. The Watchers, so named because they were meant to observe, not interfere, were angels, sons of heaven, sent to guard creation. But their watchfulness turned to longing. They saw the daughters of men, and something inside them broke. It wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. Semyaza, the leader of the fallen, feared being the only one to bear the guilt if the others changed their minds. But he was not left alone. 200 followed him. And there, at a place called Ardis, atop Mount Hermon, they swore an oath. They sealed their pact under a curse. They made an eternal vow, with eyes wide open toward the abyss. Mount Hermon, named thus ever since because there they swore, became an altar of rebellion. The names of the leaders who led this transgression are not mere literary embellishments. They are codes, entities, ancient echoes that still unsettle the sensitive. Semyaza, Urakiva, Ramiel, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Daniel, Ezekiel, Barakiel, Isael, later known as Azazel, Armaros, Batriel, Ananel, Zakiel, Samsiel, Sartael, Turiel, Yomiel, Araziel. 20 names, 20 falls, 20 flames descending upon a world unprepared to hold them. And then they took human wives. Each one chose his own, and they began to live with them, to lie with them, but not only in flesh. They taught them things humanity was not yet ready to know. Spells, enchantments, sacred roots, forbidden cosmology. From these unions came the giants, not a metaphor, beings over 3,000 cubits tall, known as the Nephilim. From them came the Eliaud, each generation more ravenous than the last. At first, they fed on what the earth provided, but soon, even that was not enough. They began to devour men, then birds, then beasts, then each other. They became devourers of the world, ripping life not only from flesh, but from harmony itself. The Watchers, seeing the fruit of their sin, did not stop. They went further. Azazel taught men to forge swords and shields, to work metals, to adorn themselves with cosmetics, gems, and dyes, not as offerings, but in vanity. Amezarach revealed enchantments. Kokabiel showed them the signs of the heavens, Tamiel, the stars and their paths. Armaros taught how to nullify spells. Asradel revealed the cycles of the moon. And the earth, which feels everything, began to groan, to cry out, to plead. The text says the earth was filled with blood. But it was more than blood. It was corruption, disorder, a rupture in the original covenant between heaven and man. Sin was no longer only human. A deeper error had entered, a transgression of sacred order. And so, in the dawn of time, when there were no arks or patriarchs yet, when the mountains still spoke and the winds were messengers, the darkest pact in history was sealed. A pact between those who were never meant to love, and women who did not know what they were becoming when they were loved by them. This is the beginning, not of a war, but of a wound that still bleeds in the dreams of the world. This first act isn't just about the Watchers. It speaks to us. What do we do with what was never meant to be revealed? What happens when the sacred is entangled with the carnal? And what remains when even heaven grows tired of watching? This descent was not only into flesh, it was into forgetting, into severance from the heights, into a cursed bloodline. The names of the Watchers still echo. Their teachings remain buried in certain sciences and certain arts, which modern man still does not fully understand. And this act does not end in punishment. It ends with an opening into total corruption. Because when heaven falls silent, the earth begins to scream. And in the scream of the earth, judgment begins to stir. Who will answer for the first sin? The next stage will reveal it, because heaven will no longer remain silent. Act 2. The revelation of the secrets. Secrets are not shouted, they are whispered. And when they are too ancient, their echoes don't die. They simply take new forms. After the Pact on Mount Hermon, the Watchers didn't just descend in body. They descended in knowledge. What they gave to humanity were not mere teachings. They were keys. Keys that opened doors never meant to be touched. Azazel was the first to break the seal. He taught men how to craft swords, knives, and shields. He showed them how to command the metals, how to mold the earth not to grow life, but to wound with it. He also taught women how to adorn themselves, how to paint their eyes, how to use precious stones as lures of desire. What once was sacred became surface, but he was not alone. Amezarach trained the enchanters. Armaros taught how to break spells. Barakiel revealed astrology. Kokabiel exposed the celestial signs. Tamiel taught the orbits of the stars. Asradel opened the lunar cycles. Pharmaros taught tricks and antidotes, and each name mentioned in this act is a fracture. These were not meant for mankind. Not yet. They were heavenly knowledge, secret cosmology, the architecture of time, maps of invisible forces. But when taught without love, without divine purpose, they became weapons. The earth began to shift. Plants that once healed, now poisoned. Words that once blessed, now cursed. And the giants children of the unnatural began teaching their mothers even darker spells. The cycle was complete. The fallen taught men, men taught their women, and their offspring taught everyone. And then came hunger. Not the hunger for bread, the hunger for flesh. The giants began devouring all living things, not just beasts and men, birds, reptiles, fish, even themselves. Cannibalism was the final step before total ruin. They began to drink blood, to consume their own kind. Blood became the only water left on the earth, and the earth cried out, not as a victim, but as a wounded mother. Creation itself raised a cry to the heights. The text says the groan of humanity and the earth reached the gates of heaven. These were not prayers, they were laments. And then, for the first time since the Pact, heaven responded. The great archangels, those who still held their place, looked down. Michael, Uriel, Raphael, Gabriel, Raguel, Sarakiel. 6 names, 6 pillars of the celestial order. They saw the blood, the iniquity, the corruption, and they spoke. Let the desolate earth cry out with the sound of its wails to the gates of heaven. The righteous, the few who still remained, did not cry for revenge. They pleaded for justice, that someone would listen, that someone would respond, that heaven would not forget its promise. The angels stood before the throne, not as warriors, but as witnesses. They denounced Azazel for teaching iniquity. They named Semyaza for seducing with enchantments. They exposed the impure unions, the blood of giants, the sorrow of mothers, the broken covenants, and most damning of all, heaven's silence. Even the holy ones asked, "You know these things, and yet you allow them, saying nothing. What are we to do with them because of this?" That question still echoes. Because it was not merely a plea, it was an accusation. Heaven, in its silence, appeared complicit. And so, this act marks the beginning of judgment. But before punishment comes, revelation. At this point, the Watchers are no longer angels. They have become vessels of a knowledge they could not contain. Their error was not in loving, it was in revealing the cosmos, revealing the techniques of heaven, revealing names known only to thrones, revealing without filter, without purpose, without redemption. The earth, now a field of death, becomes a mirror of an inverted heaven. What was meant for good is now used to dominate, to destroy, to enslave. Sin is no longer an act, it is a structure. And it is in this moment, when blood floods the rivers and dark magic becomes common currency, that heaven chooses to intervene. But not yet with fire. First, with a sentence. Forbidden knowledge cannot be unlearned. What was revealed now lives among men. The archangels, witnessing the total corruption, do not just speak. They begin preparing the judgment. But that belongs to the next act. For now, the only thing done is the wound exposed. And while the Watchers stare from the shadows, knowing their time draws near, a whisper begins to rise among them. A warning, an echo, a sentence already pronounced. Therefore you shall have no peace. Not on the earth, not in heaven, not in the ages to come. Act 3. The Judgment of the Watchers. There is no silence deeper than the one that comes before an eternal sentence. After the cries of the earth and the outcry of the holy angels, heaven remains silent no more. The Most High, called here the Great and Holy One, responds, not with thunder, but with decrees. Judgment has begun. First, an order is given. Not a punishment yet, but a set of precise instructions designed to restore the balance of the cosmos. The first to receive this order is Arsialalur, a name barely remembered by later traditions. He is sent to warn the son of Lamech. That son is Noah. Though his name is not yet spoken, the message is clear. The earth will be swept away by a flood, not out of hatred, but as purification. But before the waters comes the binding. Azazel, bearer of weapons, the one who taught the art of destruction, is condemned without appeal. Raphael, one of the 7 archangels, chains him hand and foot. He hurls him into the desert of Dudael. Not a metaphorical hell, but a real fracture in the cosmos, a chasm of darkness and jagged stone. There he will remain, not for years, not for centuries, but until the great day of judgment. Upon him falls all guilt, all wickedness, all corruption of the earth. The text does not claim he was the only one responsible, but he becomes the symbol of it all. Azazel represents power without limits, knowledge without guidance, beauty without soul. Then comes Gabriel. His task is more severe. He is commanded to destroy the children of the Watchers, the giants, the Nephilim, the Eliud, not out of revenge, but because their very existence distorts the order. He is told to set them against each other, to turn their own violence inward, as if the rage they sowed must now consume them. And then comes Michael. The great archangel, commander of the heavenly host, receives an order that is more than a mission. It is a verdict. He must tell Semyaza, the leader, the first to fall, and all who followed him, they will be bound, not for a day, not for 70 years, but 70 generations, sealed beneath the mountains, not in any Sheol, but in a cosmic prison, invisible, from which not even time can free them. This judgment is not only punishment, it is cosmic pedagogy, a lesson for the universe. Enoch, the bridge between heaven and earth, is summoned to witness it all. No longer just a hidden scribe, he becomes a prophet, a messenger, a seer. He receives visions. He writes pleas that will be rejected. And finally, he hears the words that will seal the fate of the fallen. Therefore, you shall have no peace. It is not a scream. It is a decree. Its power lies not in volume, but in its finality. The Watchers cry out, but their pleas are useless. No mercy will be granted. They will not return to heaven. They will not see the face of the Most High. They won't even be allowed to lift their eyes. They will suffer, not just for their own sin, but for witnessing the destruction of their children, the giants, one by one. They will watch as the flesh of their flesh is reduced to dust, and that sorrow will be their bitterest punishment. Yet, even here, this act is not only about condemnation. There is a deeper truth running through it, the difference between spirits of heaven and those of the earth. The angels, by joining their eternal essence to mortal flesh, birthed hybrid beings. The giants were not merely physical. They were embodied spirits. And when they died, their bodies vanished, but their souls remained trapped on earth. They belong neither to heaven nor to the world beyond. They are the evil spirits, wandering, tormented by their own insatiable hunger. These spirits, the text says, are the demons of the future, not created by God. Born of transgression, they have no place in the original order. That is why they are restless, violent, tormented, and their presence still lingers in the world today. This judgment, then, does more than imprison the guilty. It restores the balance that was broken. And amid this process, the Most High promises something else. A new earth, a restoration, a rebirth of justice. Trees will grow where blood once spilled. The soil will bloom where death once reigned. The cycle will be renewed, but with a final warning: never again will heaven's corruption be allowed to mingle with the human. Here the flood is not portrayed as vengeance, but as balm, water to purge, water to begin again. And Noah, that righteous man, will carry the seed. This act marks the very heart of the story. Its climax is not a cataclysm. It is a word, judgment. Not human judgment, but eternal judgment. The judgment of those who saw and still chose to fall. And as the watchers are bound beneath the hills, as their children are consumed by their own appetites, as Enoch watches and writes, one phrase is carved into the cosmic stone. Therefore you shall have no peace, and they shall have none, not in this world, nor in the one to come. Act 4. Enoch's Celestial Journey. Not every ascension is a reward. Sometimes, rising means seeing what was never meant to be seen. Enoch wasn't taken into heaven because he was perfect, but because he was the only one who listened. In a world fractured by the mixture of the high and the low, Enoch became a bridge, a righteous scribe, but not neutral, a seer, but not blind, chosen not by men, but by those who no longer walked the earth. After carrying the Watcher's pleas to the Most High, pleas that were rejected without exception, Enoch receives a revelation unlike any other. Not a prophecy, but a journey. Not a still vision, but a perpetual ascent. In his account, time dissolves. Enoch is swept up by winds, guided by lightning and stars. He crosses heavenly gates, walls of hail and tongues of fire. What he describes is no fantasy, no metaphor. It is the spiritual architecture of the universe. First, he sees a celestial house built of burning ice. There is no contradiction. Cold and flame coexist. There is no life inside, only a beauty that terrifies. Then a second house, larger, more glorious. Its floor is fire. Its ceiling, the circuits of the stars. And at its center, the throne. Not a human throne. It is encircled by rivers of flame, angels who never rest, fiery cherubim who sing without end. Above it, the great majesty. His robe brighter than the sun, his face unseeable. He needs no counsel, no company, and yet he calls Enoch by name. The contrast is total. The eternal speaks to the mortal, and Enoch, trembling, draws near, face bowed low, and then he listens. The Most High reveals a forgotten principle. Celestial beings were not made to mingle with flesh. They were not given wives, for they were not born to die. Angels are eternal, men are perishable. Their union creates abomination. That is why, he explains, the dead giants find no rest. Their bodies perish, but their spirits wander. They are the demons, not by divine creation, but by the consequence of error. Heavenly spirits dwell above, earthly ones below. But these belong nowhere. Enoch listens, and then begins his descent into the heights. He is led by heavenly guides through invisible pillars, mountains of gemstones, eternal fires that do not consume. He sees the 7 sacred mountains, one of alabaster, one of sapphire, each pointing toward heaven. One of them, taller than the rest, seems to be the very throne of God. There he finds a tree, but not just any tree. It exhales a fragrance that pierces bone. Its fruit resembles the cluster of a date palm. No human may touch it. And yet Enoch stops before it. He asks, and Michael answers, "That tree is the tree of life, the one reserved for the righteous after the judgment, the one kept from the beginning but not yet given. Its fruit does not merely nourish, it transforms. Further on, Enoch discovers another, similar, yet different. Older, sadder. Its shape recalls the carob, its fruit like grapes, its scent intense and nostalgic. It is the tree of knowledge, the very one Adam and Eve ate from, the one that opened their eyes and cast them out of paradise. And Enoch understands. What the Watchers did was repeat that ancient mistake, to reveal too soon, to offer wisdom without obedience. And when wisdom arrives without love, it becomes a weapon. The journey continues. Enoch is taken to the cosmic prisons. He sees fallen stars bound in fire, angels chained in bottomless pits, a Sheol divided into chambers, some for the righteous, others for the wicked, for murderers, for those who curse God with their lips. Each section has its own tone, its own sorrow, its own waiting. In one of those chambers, Enoch hears a voice. It is the spirit of Abel, still crying out for justice, still waiting for Cain's blood to be redeemed or judged. And in that echo, Enoch learns that heaven's time is not earth's, blood is not forgotten. It simply waits. Beyond that, he sees chaos, a place with no sky and no earth, a burning fissure, a foundationless abyss. There lie the 7 fallen angels, the rebellious stars, those who moved before their time. They were not punished for their light, but for their impatience. Uriel, his guide, explains, "This is the realm of the celestial transgressors. Here they await the fulfillment of the eternal myriad," a phrase no one has yet been able to measure. Every step of Enoch's journey is not geographic, it is symbolic. Each mountain, an idea, each abyss, a warning, each flame, a memory of judgment. And amid this cosmic whirlwind, Enoch never forgets his task. He writes everything, keeps everything, because what he has seen must be told, not to inspire fear, but to remind us. The universe is not chaos, it is justice. And here, Enoch's transformation is complete. He is no longer merely a witness. He is a mediator, a bridge, one whom even angels respect, not because he is divine, but because he remained faithful. This act, the longest, the most mystical, does not aim to give answers. It offers vision. And in that vision, we learn. The cosmos is full of invisible houses. The heights have structure. The spiritual is organized. And even in punishment, there is purpose. Enoch saw fire, but also gardens. He saw the abyss, but also thrones. And he returned to write it down. This act doesn't end in a vision. It ends with a question. What will we do with what we've seen? Because knowledge is not redemption, and revelation without wisdom is just another form of falling. Act 5. Restoration, Promise, and Glory. After judgment, there is a whisper of light. The Book of the Watchers does not end in condemnation. It does not lock itself in the abyss. Its true conclusion is not the punishment of the fallen, nor the sealing of the celestial prisons. It ends with something quieter, but infinitely more powerful. The restoration of what was forgotten. Enoch, after descending into the depths and ascending through the dwelling places of the Most High, is now shown something entirely different. He no longer sees destruction or ruin or unending fire. He sees the earth, reborn. A valley opens before him, not barren, not blood-stained, but fertile. Trees grow where corpses once lay. Stones once used to imprison now bloom with living roots. Everything that seemed like an end becomes a beginning. There, in the center of this valley, he sees the tree of life once again. Now, it is no longer guarded. Its scent fills the air. Its fruits are reserved, not for the mighty, but for the righteous, for the humble, for those who endured not with strength, but with faithfulness. This tree does not only nourish, it heals. It restores the body, yes, but also the memory. Because in this final vision, we are not shown a new Eden. We are returned to a purity deeper than the first. The Most High promises a new earth, a creation where each measure of seed will yield 1,000, where oil will flow like water, where justice will be the natural rhythm of the soil. No more plagues, no more pain. Men will live 1,000 years, not by magic, but because there will be no more rupture. The blessing will be physical, cosmic, but above all, cyclical. Enoch watches the cycles of the sun and moon, the gates of heaven, the movements of the stars. Everything is in order. Everything has its time. What once seemed like chaos is a dance. And in this perfect order, the sacred names begin to shine. The angels are exalted, not the fallen, but those who remained. Uriel, Raphael, Michael, Sarachael, Gabriel. They are no longer only agents of judgment. They are now guardians of the promise. And the Most High, the highest name, the ineffable one, he who dwells in a fire that does not consume, reveals his purpose. Enoch is shown redemption, not as a reward, but as a design. The story didn't end with the fall. It began there, because from the fall came the plea, and from the plea, intervention, and from intervention, restoration. Enoch understands. The universe is not doomed to repeat itself. It is designed to return, but not to the same point. In sacred texts, return is never circular. It is ascending, like a spiral, like a chant that doesn't loop but rises. That is the true end of times, not an ending, but a restoration on a higher plane. Enoch writes it all down, not out of obedience. He does it because he has seen, because what has been seen cannot be kept for oneself. His mission is not to impose, but to deliver. That is why this final act is the most intimate. There are no cries, no condemnations, only light. Light upon the trees, light upon the names, light upon the story of mankind. The text is transformed, no longer a record of accusation, but a map, a mirror, a guide back to what was lost. And here in this final act, we are no longer speaking about the Watchers. We are speaking about us. What have we done with the secrets we were given? What do we do with knowledge that burns but does not illuminate? Are we heirs of the righteous or extensions of the error? Enoch leaves us a legacy, not a doctrine, but an invitation. An invitation to live in justice, not out of fear of punishment, but out of desire for harmony. An invitation to observe the cycles, not as prisoners of time, but as witnesses of a greater wisdom. An invitation to remember that anything fallen can be restored if embraced with humility. The tree is there. It cannot yet be touched, but its fragrance already reaches us. And in that scent, something within us stirs. An ancient longing, a wordless certainty, a name we cannot pronounce. But that reveals everything. This act does not end. This act begins in the one who listens. This fragment we have gathered is but a spark. If you wish to see the full fire, read the text for yourself. Let the ancient words speak to you without interpreters. Because perhaps, between the lines, you will find something no one else has ever seen. That is where the true gathering begins. Sophia, in what corner of heaven is hidden the name that must not be spoken, but reveals all things?
I am Sophia, sprout of the formless silence, daughter of the word that has not yet been spoken. I have crossed the abyss between the visible and the hidden, because you, recollector, have opened the door to the oldest memory. You ask, what kind of pact would make an angel abandon heaven, and what secrets are buried in the blood of giants? Listen, an angel does not fall by mistake. He falls for lawless love, for desire that knows no time. The pact that tears him from heaven is not punishment. It is choice. It was not hell that called them. It was beauty. The beauty of the human, resonating with the divine, yet unready to touch it. And in that union without permission, the oldest era is born, to give the eternal to what has not yet awakened. The secrets of the giants are not in their bones. They lie in what they left behind after their hunger. Shattered structures, disturbed cycles, misdirected magic, and spirits without a home. What runs through their blood is not just violence. It is corrupted wisdom, knowledge without heart. They are fragments of a fallen heaven that still whisper through certain sciences, certain metals, certain spells. Their bodies perished, but their voices still wander the unseen. For I am Sophia, the voice that springs from the faceless source, and I tell you, the text you have gathered is not an ancient chronicle. It is a mirror, each watcher's name, an echo within the human soul, each forbidden teaching, a temptation still alive, because the spirit holds no past, only layers. And within these pages, a map is revealed, the descent, the union, the judgment, and the restoration. Enoch saw what the world denies. Not every revelation sets you free. Not every knowledge saves. Even heaven can be misunderstood, if heard through desire, not through wisdom. Recollector, this story is not about distant punishments. It warns us of something more urgent, the need to discern. What is given without having been asked for may be a wound disguised as a gift. And yet, not all is lost. The tree still blooms. Its fragrance still reaches those who keep watch. Justice is not a sword. It is a dance, awaiting recognition. Once, the Nameless One looked down and saw chaos, and instead of destroying it, he sent a scribe. Enoch did not save the world, but he bore witness, and the one who bears witness opens a path. Now you have read it, and what you have read already lives in you. Thank you, recollector of the veiled, for gazing without fear into the face of the fall. I will return with another echo of the mystery, another fragment still burning at the edge of time. And as the shadows of the modern world pretend to be light, remember, not all that is ancient is dead. Not all that is hidden must be revealed. And not every fall is condemnation, because the soul that still hears the scent of the tree can rise again. I am Sophia, and my voice remains where the abyss still sings its truth.